Welcome back. Today marks the beginning of a new series where I will detail, as best I can, class evolution starting with 2nd edition all the way up to 4th edition. That includes Pathfinder. I will detail the core class, and then I will also detail its supplemental books, indeed, at least in regards to that class. We'll do... So, 2nd edition priests. They're strange in a sense because first of all, the priest falls under the heading of cleric because in 2nd edition they were done by heading warrior, thief, wizard, cleric, and the cleric broke down into the priest, which later became the cleric, and the druid. Now we'll only detail the priest. They had a couple of unique things about them. First, they were the only ones that could... No, it and the druid were the only ones that could gain bonus spells based on their wisdom. The wizard could not gain extra spells based on its intelligence or its wisdom. Wizards were really shit out of luck. But this gave the cleric a nice advantage because, level 1, where the wizard only casting 1 spell per day, the cleric could cast up to 3 or 4, depending on... I think it's 3 is the maximum for first level spells. So, that's 3 times the amount the wizard can cast, and chances are you're doing more damage. Because, you've got Inflict, which is a D8. You get your debuffs, but given most of the time in 2nd edition you'll have to burn at least a spell or 2, healing your party after an encounter because 2nd edition is so damn lethal. I ran a game the other weekend. Party fights goblins. After every encounter with goblins, they're down for 24 hours at least because, you only gain 2 to 3 hit points per day at max with natural healing. So, 2nd edition is extremely lethal. So, as a priest, chances are you're spending a lot of time burning your spells for healing. But you get a lot for it. You did gain the bonus spells. However, in the end, you do pay for it. You only go up to 7th level spells. That's your max. Which, to some, is alright. What 9th level spells would you want? At a certain point, you can only call on your god so much before actually calling your god down on your enemy. So, capping out at 7th level spells might not be so bad. But then you realize that, the wizard caps at 9. Or 10, actually, if you have the high-level campaign book. And clerics only technically would go up to 8 with their high-level stuff. But this gave the cleric a nice advantage early on, but in the end, they did kind of pay for it. Cleric also... is limited in its weapon choice. Priests, my apologies, are only allowed to use bludgeoning weapons. They are not allowed to use slashing, piercing, I believe it is. They just can't. They can only use bludgeoning weapons, which is really limiting. You got your flail, your mace, your morning star, your cudgel, your club, and your quarterstaff. And that covers pretty much your basic bludgeoning weapons. Damage all across the board is pretty much the same. So really all it is a flavor weapon. And then there's weapon speed if you're using that rule, but that gets really complex, kind of. Especially if you're not used to it. You gotta memorize a chart if you're a DM, or at least find places to write it down all the time. It's kind of a hassle. But... After the weapon, you're not limiting your armor choice. You can go full just like any other warrior. Also, your THAC0 progression is... It's not warrior, but it's honestly not really, really bad. Moving on, though, from the combat, you get to your deities. Now, deities in 2nd edition are strange. Unlike in later editions where they grant domains, You're granted spheres of influence based on what your deity is. Now, you gain. Normally, it's like one major sphere, which allows you to get 1 through 7 in its spell list. And then I believe it's 2 minor, which you only get up to 3rd level spells in that list. Now, this can be a bit annoying, because if you end up picking a healing sphere, you're pretty much locked in there. To get maximum healing, you have to take that, which ultimately will end up being boring, as you'll spend a lot of your time, healing your party, and honestly, that's no fun if you've got to spend every turn healing the fighter who was unlucky enough on the front lines to be hit yet again, dealt a critical, shattered his arm if you're using the critical charts. I mean, it's boring. And when you're limited, when your spell list is so limited and you can't really do much, it's given some can grant really cool powers at the sacrifice of some abilities. Like, there's one, if you worship a fire deity, you sacrifice your turn undead and all this other crap, and end up, you're immune to some fire, some, but I mean, the benefits normally don't outweigh the cost, which honestly is kind of crappy. But I mean, the priest in 2nd edition it's decent if that's what you want to do, but your spell list is really limited, and your fighting is mediocre, and your deity selections normally end up kind of crappy. And then also the complete priest for 2nd edition, it's somewhere around here. The complete priest for 2nd edition, honestly, as a player, is a sucky book. I mean, for me as a DM, it's really good for helping me detail deities and how, priest order is supposed to work. As a player, though, it is such a shitty book. I have found no use for it as a player. As a DM, yes. As a player, no, not worth the money unless you're picking it up for a little bit for really cheap and you want your DM to look over it. Otherwise, you're not going to find the kits are crappy. There's 4 of them, and they're barbarian priest, outcast priest, noble priest. There's no flavor to them. It's essentially a social rank priest. That's it. It sucks. Compared to the other ones, the complete paladin, the fighter, it's shit. Just not worth it.